Hey guys, it's Michael, and I'm back with my second vlog. I did one of these a couple of weeks ago and I talked about the channel, the future of the channel and the things that were coming. And I said in that video that if it was successful that I would come and do another one of these. And I consider that it was pretty successful. It got a good number of views, and most importantly, I got some really kind comments from people, both some people that I know and people that have subscribed to my channel. So I've decided to do a second vlog. We'll see how it goes. Again, please do give me feedback. And I thought I would talk about in this vlog why it is that I've started a YouTube channel. And to tell that story, we probably need to go back about 18 months. And I had an awful lot going on in my life at that period of time. I had a good life, I had a good job, fantastic career that I really enjoy, and 3 beautiful children between my partner and I. And my life was busy, it was full, and it was a good life. Don't misunderstand anything that I'm going to say now. I consider myself to be extremely privileged and lucky to lead the sort of lifestyle that I do. Well, what I found was that I was starting to get a bit stressed. I was very, very focused on work, and those that know me will know that I am a little bit of a workaholic. It's something that I've been called in the past. And between long hours of working my job and then coming home, getting the kids to bed, etc., I was finding in the evenings that one of two things was happening. I was either passing out, falling asleep on the sofa, or as I was sitting watching television with my partner, generally pretty disengaged in the show that we were watching, I'd sit and I'd start thinking about jobs that I needed to do, things that needed to be done around the house, or activities that I was doing at work. And my reflection for myself was that I was unnecessarily adding to my burden. I was getting myself worked up and consumed and, dare I say, anxious about things that I probably didn't need to be. And my partner made a great suggestion, which is that you need to find yourself a hobby. You need to find something that you can do in the evenings and the weekends that is something for yourself and that will be enough just to stimulate the mind, but not so much that you absolutely exhaust yourself. So I started to think about what sort of hobby I could do. And in my younger years, particularly when I was at university, I was very passionate about building custom PCs. So I immediately started going on the internet and I started researching, custom built PCs. Indeed, I bought myself some components and I rattled one together. It's a bit like riding a bike. It all comes flooding back, and I found that I really, really enjoyed the process of doing that. Bought myself some games, started to get back into that. It had been a few years, really, since I'd done that kind of thing. And then that got me thinking again, and I started thinking about wanting to do a truly epic build. Now, all of my builds up until this point had been on air cooling only, and water cooling was something that I had thought about, teetered about. Certainly there were people that I went to university with that had water cooled PCs. Back in those days, you didn't have the consumer parts that you can buy now. You had to do lots of bespoke type stuff. So I looked at that at the time and thought, feels like a little bit too much hassle. I'm not going to bother. So I stuck with my air cooling. So started thinking about doing myself a water cooling build. And I went on Google, which is always your friend and a good place to start, and started Googling water cooling. Now, to my complete and utter surprise, I came across, at the time, a much smaller YouTuber than he is now, a chap called Jay's 2 Cents that you may or may not have come across before. Now, I wasn't looking on YouTube. This is from Google searches, and I saw these videos, and I clicked on these videos, and I started watching this chap talking really passionately about water cooling, and I was quite shocked. So YouTube, to me, up until that point, had all been about watching music videos, and it had been about watching funny videos about cats and dogs. It had never occurred to me that people would create whole episodic shows around the passion that was my hobby, which was building custom PCs. So the more of these videos that I watched, the more and more absorbed into this I got. Now, YouTube suggests other videos for you to go and watch, and I came across channels like Paul's Hardware and Linus Tech Tips, and suddenly discovered that there was this whole world and community out there that I had become really quite detached from. So bear in mind, I was probably building PCs around 2003, 2002, 2003, 2004, that kind of era, and YouTube just wasn't where it was today. Indeed, if it even existed at all. I'm not quite sure when YouTube actually started. So I became more and more absorbed into watching these videos, and my idea of building an epic PC grew and grew and grew, and inspired by Jay's 2 cents Skunkworks build, I decided that I would like to have a go at building something in a Case Labs case. Now, I didn't go straight to the Case Labs case. I built myself a couple of water-cooled PCs, much simpler water-cooled PCs, and I started with all-in-one coolers for the CPU. I then progressed on to doing soft tubing custom water-cooled loops for the GPU. I then had a go at bending PTGA acrylic tubing. Well, I guess it's not acrylic, it's PTGA, but you get the sense of what I'm saying. And I will definitely do a future vlog on PCs that I've built or tinkered around with or played with. That will take us all the way back to definitely the 1990s. I've got some really archaic, amusing pictures of me tinkering around PCs, so stay tuned for that vlog. So I tinkered around, and I was using pretty old components at this point in time. I was using old PCs from a year or two ago, very much in the mindset of, if I mess this up, it's going to be disappointing, but I won't have sunk a whole load of cash on brand new components, so I can afford myself the opportunity to get this wrong on old kit. Would be ashamed to break that stuff, but it isn't going to completely break the bank. And that all went really, really well. I was pleasantly surprised at the process that I went through to build that stuff. Now, bear in mind that I had probably spent an awful lot of hours sitting watching YouTube videos on my phone, and probably was about as well prepared for taking my foray into water cooling that I could be, right? You're probably never 100% prepared. There's probably always that little thing that you haven't considered or that you haven't thought about, but it went pretty well. We didn't have any leaks. We didn't break any components. I can certainly remember the first time that I took the heatsink and air cooling block off a GPU. I was apprehensive at doing that. As I did that, suddenly became very apparent to me that it's not really any different to fitting heat sinks to motherboards. The only difference is that you've got to remove something before you put something else on. And I would definitely say to anyone who's considering doing it and is feeling apprehensive about it, start slowly, build your confidence, but absolutely give it a go. It's 100% worth it. Not only for the temperatures that you'll achieve, and I'm an absolute numbers nut, but the process of building a water-cooled PC is infinitely more interesting than that of an air-cooled PC. And the last couple of builds I'd done, I'd found that I'd knocked those together pretty quickly. I got the actual build pulled together within a couple of hours. It wasn't really challenging me, and it wasn't really stretching me in the way that necessarily I wanted it to. So I did these couple of water-cooled type PCs, and decided to go for it, and trawled through the Case Labs website, and ahed about which case to go for. I certainly looked at the SMA A8 bigger brother, where you've got the side mounting options for the radiator on the top of the case as well as on the bottom of the case. Now, Mrs. Tower Tech pleaded for me not to get that case. She thought it was ugly, and she thought it was going to be huge, and she was almost certainly right. So I decided to go for the SMA A8 in gunmetal grey, which is the case that Jay's 2 cents built in, and I had been through all of the Case Lab photos on their website, on the internet, looking at some of the really fantastic builds that you could do, and I really found myself really wanting to get my teeth sunk in. And I had to buy this PC in dribs and drabs. So I got the case long before I got the motherboard, and I got the motherboard long before I got the CPU, certainly before I got the graphics cards. And what I started to do was assemble this slowly over a period of time. I used old components that I had, and the whole thing was air cooling to begin with, right? It took me a while to build up the water cooling parts, and I had masses of support from my family, who I think were starting to see some changes in me. You know, they saw this guy that was tense and preoccupied and not really present and there in the room, suddenly relaxing and talking about something other than work and the kids. And they bought me an awful lot of this kit. So between a birthday, so my birthday is in October, it's relatively close to Christmas, but so between my birthday and between Christmas, they really bought the whole water cooling loop that I've got. I actually didn't buy any of those components myself. They were gifted to me from relatives and friends, and a big shout out to all of you for your support in that. It really, really was much appreciated. So I pulled this thing together. And guys, this was an absolute behemoth of a project. It probably took, if I omit the gaps between getting components and just kind of consolidated that all together, you know, it's a good couple of weeks of building that it took to pull this thing together. So, got the PC up and running. I will definitely do a bit more of a detailed video on that in the future. And I found a bit of a void again. And I started to drift back into preoccupation with work and some frustrations with the kids, starting to get to an age, you know, anyone who's got kids around the kind of 2-3 years old range will know that you absolutely love them to pieces, but they really can drive you balmy when they want to. So Mrs. Tower Tech suggested that perhaps there was another project that I needed. And it was actually her that suggested that I think about doing a YouTube channel. She said, you know, you've spent all of this time watching these other chaps. They've inspired you to get back into a passion, a lost passion from my youth and from my university days. Why don't you think about having a go at doing something like that? You could do something like that. So I started tinkering around with cameras. I started filming family events. We had an old DSLR that I had bought for Mrs. Tower Tech for a previous birthday, which was the Canon 600D. It's a relatively entry-level DSLR from Canon, but absolutely capable of doing 1080p HD video and has interchangeable lenses, etc. on it. So I started messing around with that, you know, filming the kids out in the park, and I started doing some B-roll footage of the build I've got. And in my very, very first video that I did, which was around my IKEA desk build, and indeed on the video that I did about the Rode shotgun microphone and the Blue Yeti microphone that I'm recording on at the moment, you can see the old desk that I had this on, which was quite cramped. And I filmed that over the course of the summer. I didn't upload anything. I just recorded it. I got myself a copy of Premiere Pro from Adobe and started messing around, playing around with that. Again, straight looking to YouTube videos to understand how to edit and how to use that stuff. We then went off on holiday. We had a fantastic family holiday out in Portugal. It was an extended family holiday, so it wasn't just my beloved and myself and the kids. We actually went with my sister and my brother-in-law and their children, and my stepbrother and my stepsister and my stepfather and my mother and my grandfather, I should say, indeed, who was an absolute delight to have there. Absolute living legend, by the way. Fittest chap that I've ever known, that is in his 80s. He shows me up. Most definitely goes out cycling on his bike most days. So I came back from holiday, and again I started tinkering around with the footage. Decided that I wanted a bigger desk and started to film that, tinkering. And around this time, my father became unwell and had a suspected cancer scare. That led him to become quite reflective on his life, and not necessarily in a negative way. I think it got him very focused and very proactive about the things that he felt were important and that he wanted to prioritise. Now, wind on the clock a little bit. Now, fortunately, my father's health scare has passed and he's okay. But actually watching someone that you're very close to, that you've known for an awful long time in your life, become reflective in that way, started making me think about lost opportunities, things that perhaps I could have done or should have done in my life, things that I could have done differently. And that started really getting me think about the future. You know, let's be reflective now. Let's not be reflective when it's too late to do stuff about it. So I decided to give it a go. I have absolutely no idea where all of this is going. I wouldn't even articulate particular expectations one way or the other, but what I absolutely do know is that I'm having loads and loads and loads of fun doing this. So it's absolutely driving the occupation of my mind and my thoughts in the evening. I'm either scribbling on a whiteboard thinking about the videos that I'm going to do and trying to set out a roadmap for the videos, or I'm filming, or I'm editing, or I'm uploading, or I'm on social media trying to promote the channel. And I am absolutely flabbergasted at all of the positive encouragement that I've had. The comments, 99% of which are fantastic, and I know I've made some slightly tongue-in-cheek comments recently about some of the comments that I've received, but guys, you know, truly the comments really appreciated, 99% of which are really encouraging. And I distinctly remember the day that I went into work. I had an awful lot to do, and someone that I knew, not massively well, but I knew who they were, you know, as the sort of person that you chat to at the tea and coffee hub, really started talking to me about my PC and my desk and my videos and asking me loads of questions, and was really interested in the stuff that I was doing. And that moment was an absolute revelation for me. And I think that cemented for me that I really wanted to go on this journey, and I really wanted to do this. And I moved very quickly from, you know, uploading a video a week, a video a fortnight, and started to set myself some challenges. So the challenge that I set myself was that I would upload 2 videos a week. And I set myself a loose target around trying to release those on a Thursday and a Sunday. Wind on the clock a little bit, and suddenly the IKEA desk build video that I released. Now that, guys, that was my very first video. It will look out of sequence in the running order. You will see a couple of civilization videos that look like they were released earlier. But the reason for that is that I redid the sound and I redid the intro on that video. I went back and looked at it, and I did a couple of tweaks, and I re-released it. That's why it's called Redux at the end. That video has now got in excess of 12,000 views. It's got well over 100 likes. I can't remember off the top of my head how many comments it's got. And I wasn't expecting that. So bear in mind that that video today is still showing in YouTube as only being 2 months old. I think it's two months and a couple of weeks. And 174 subscribers in. And I genuinely didn't really start this channel with any particular expectations. And I've learned loads of skills since I've started this. So, you know, I think I've become reasonably proficient at Premiere Pro. I've started using Photoshop, which is an application that I've never used before, and you will have seen from some of my intros and my outros, I've started playing around with After Effects as well. So all of those things becoming, you know, really interesting things that were occupying my mind. So there's a little snapshot of the journey that's got me to starting this YouTube channel. I want to say really big thanks to all of you guys for taking time out of your days to watch my videos and comment on my videos and like my videos. It really is genuinely appreciated, guys. So I'm going to wrap it up there. I hope you've enjoyed this vlog. The next one that I'm going to do is going to be all about the history of my PC building, both the positive and the negative. I hope you're really well wherever you are, and I'll see you in my next video.